Firefighters in Virginia Beach, Virginia are searching the remains of 40 apartments looking for victims of today's military plane crash. This was the Navy FA-18 shortly after takeoff from the Oceana Naval Air Station this afternoon. A few minutes later, the plane's distinctive twin tail and twin engines lay in the middle of the burning apartment complex. Both crewmen ejected and survived. One ejection seat landed in a backyard. The Navy says there was a catastrophic malfunction. Sources tell us likely an engine failure. It appears the crew was preparing for an emergency landing. They started dumping about 2,000 gallons of jet fuel to lighten the plane, but they ran out of time and altitude. Bob Orr is at the scene with the latest tonight. Bob?
Scott, firefighters going through the complex where the FA-18 came down so far have reported finding no fatalities. But at the same time, authorities here are asking people to do their own head counts, asking them to report anyone who might be missing.
Oh my God, man.
5 buildings in the complex were engulfed in flames as the jet crashed into the Virginia Beach apartments just after noon. Remnants of the F-18's engines landed in a nearby courtyard. Eyewitnesses say the aircraft, which had taken off just minutes earlier, seemed to be in trouble right from the beginning of the flight. This photograph was taken by 22-year-old Chandler Blake Ferguson as he traveled on a nearby interstate. Ferguson says he saw smoke and fuel coming out of the jet. The Navy confirms the pilots were dumping fuel right before the crash, and photos suggest the pilots had pulled the nose of the jet higher in an effort to lose some speed and possibly control where it would come down.
And it just looked basically like he dropped out of the sky, pretty much. The front end of the plane started going down, and then boom, huge black cloud of smoke.
The 2 pilots ejected before the plane hit. Both pilots and their ejector seats landed close to the crash site. They were helped by local residents like Nick Bean.
He was bleeding a little bit and he still had a seat attached to him. So I pulled my knife out and I cut him loose from his chair and dragged him out and got him as far away as I could.
I saw a pilot laying on the ground on the back deck. His chute was still hooked to the building.
One of the pilots landed near Pat Kavanaugh's back porch.
He apologized very much for hitting our complex, and I told him, don't worry about it, everything's going to be fine, let's just get you out of here.
This is the backside of the apartment complex where the fighter jet went down. Neighbors here say this is only about a half a mile from the end of the runway of the Oceana Naval Air Station where the F-18 had taken off. People here are used to military jets flying overhead, but recently say they've been flying lower than usual.
We heard the plane flying, and then all of a sudden there was just this terrible loud crash and everything shook.
I ran out on the back porch and I seen the canopy of a plane, and I've lost everything.
Now, military sources tell CBS News that the pilot in the front seat was experienced but was training on this particular plane, the FA-18. Of course, the pilot in the rear seat was a certified instructor, Scott.
Bob, we've been talking to sources at the Pentagon who tell us looks like an engine failure. What did the witnesses see and hear?
What they saw and heard, very consistent with an engine failure at low altitude. They hear popping noises, they say. They saw some flames and smoke at the rear of the plane. So an engine failure is the leading mechanical theory at this point, but we have to point out investigators also want to know what the crew was doing. They want to make sure that the crew did everything in its power to avoid a populated area as they're trained to do, Scott.
Bob, thank you very much.